This is a selection from my Queen Elizabeth Africa collection, showing the rare stamps and the oddities. For convenience sake, I've put a slide in between each country with the country's name coming up. There's no talking on those slides. It's just to break the stuff up, because I found when I was doing that, jumping from one country to another, it was just becoming a little bit confusing. So, for your edification. The South African 5-shilling consular stamp. This stamp was never used in South Africa. It was only used in their embassies overseas, and there it was used to pay the visa fee for foreigners. So the fee was paid overseas, and this stamp would have only been found in foreign passports. It was, well, the whole set of 1954 revenues with Queen Elizabeth's head on them were only printed in 1954. And if you look just behind the Queen's neck, you'll see what looks like an M. But if you blow it up or look at it through a magnifying glass, you will see it denotes the year 1954. For 1 year only, 1954, the revenue stamps of South Africa depicted the Queen's head. Behind the Queen's neck, you will see very, very small, the 5 and the 4, depicting the year. There was a tribal tax in South Africa. The tax was 7 and 6pence, and the monies collected went to the betterment of the tribes in their own areas. The tax was later increased to 10 shillings, so a second stamp, a 2 and 6penny stamp, was introduced to make up the new rate. Now these overprints are done on the coronation stamps of 1953, and as you can see, they bear the likeness of Queen Elizabeth II. This may have been a political move to take the should we say, the payee's attention away from Cape Town. When the 7 and 6penny and the 2 and 6penny stamps were used up, the 10 shilling stamp was introduced. Not sure on the years that it was actually introduced, but as you can see here, we have the Ombalantu and the Ovambo tribes represented on these tax stamps. The stamps, the postage stamps that is, were originally printed for the coronation by the South African printer in Pretoria, who also did the overprints and surcharges. There must have been an awful lot of the coronation stamps overproduced, because they were used up not just for the tribal tax, but for another Bantu tax, and in this case for the entertainment tax. The stamps were applied to programs and or the tickets when one entered a auditorium. When they were on the tickets, as the ticket was torn in half, so was the stamp, and obviously half of the ticket and stamp were left on the rubbish bin. Hence the rarity of these entertainment stamps. This appears to be the case of the missing pearl. Well, pearl and a half actually. But not only is it missing from the necklace around Princess Margaret's neck, the floor is, as far as I can see, missing from all the major catalogues. In fact, I can't find it recorded anywhere. The definitive stamps of Swaziland were used both for revenue and for postage, and here we see the high value, the 10 shilling, 5 of them used on the document with a 5 shilling to pay the stamp fee on a document which is cancelled in the deeds office in Pretoria, that's South Africa. I've recorded this as a double overprint. You can clearly see the 2 impressions on the leg of the 3s. There is a chance that it is not a double overprint, but a kiss print, or what is known as a flap, when the page buckles and takes a double overprint. As far as I'm aware, this is unrecorded. The brown was omitted from the half-cent stamp. This is the stitching on the shield and the shafts, presumably of what would have been the spear. This is the misplaced half. It's been placed too high or too low, as the case may be, and it would be far better collected as a vertical pair to show the variety properly, but beggars can't be choosers. This was all I could, I won't say afford, but could find. If you look at the design on the stamp, you will see the copy, the small hill there, is the copy that was used as the design for the Basotho hat, which you will see being worn in the next slide. Basotholand inverted decimal surcharges. On the 2 cents on the Tuckney stamp, there appeared to have been 3 panes, 3 sheets of these stamps. Whether they were issued over the counter or not, I am not sure. 3 sheets seems to be rather a lot. If we look at the 2.5 cents inverted, it is recorded. Very few stamps were found, and only found used. They were found in Makatlang. The problem with this stamp is that it was cancelled in Maria before the decimalisation was even thought of. So we can only look at it as a forgery. This is the imperforate stamp with the vignette inverted. It is catalogued in the South African catalogue and in Scott's, the American catalogue, as a variety, but I often wonder, was it sold over the counter like this, or is it in actual fact printer's waste? I'm inclined to be of the opinion that it is printer's waste. This is a positional piece showing the printer's imprint and the plate numbers. There's also a variety here on the comb perforation, which this is probably the second stage, because I've noticed there on previous stamps that I've had a slight bend in the line of perforations, and it looks to me as if the comb perf cutter has been twisted to try and rectify the curve that was in it before, and this is a damaged state. It is definitely been used for quite a while, because I've been able to pick up a few positional pieces, not just on the ½ cent but on other values as well. 3½ cent with perforation abnormalities. The two pieces on the right on the comb perf have, I believe this is the first stage of the damage, and on the piece on the left is the second stage, when I believe they tried to repair the comb perforation. And on the two right hand stamps there is an additional abnormality, in that it appears that two perforation holes are missing, and with this being a comb perf, it is repeated all the way down the sheet. The two pieces proving that. Whether this was caused when they tried to repair the comb perforator, at this stage I just don't know. Interesting postcard from Nigeria, deemed to be short and charged 3 cents, which would have been double the 1½ cents that were deemed to be short, but they have used definitive stamps as postage dues, which is most unusual. The £1 Basutoland revenue stamp with the overprint of £2, 1961, and the stamp that replaced it, the same design with £2 on the stamp. Again, this would have been a case of using up old stock, because in the case of the second stamp it has been used on a parcel. I have it as a parcel piece, and to use revenue stamps up postally was most unusual. Here I show the £2 plus the £1 revenue stamps used for postage on a parcel piece. I believe the stamps were being used up because of the forthcoming change of name in 1966 from Basutoland to Lesotho. Mint example of the top revenue value, the £5, in a corner example. Also the same stamp converted into rands for the decimal conversion in 1961. There was also a second reason for using these stamps up, as they weren't used that often. There would have been an excess of stock, and they were anxious to use that stock up before the country became independent, so they were converted. The high value was converted to the relatively low value of R1 to use the old stock up. This is the misspelling of the word Lesotho in the overprint, and it was used on the 2 watermarks that had been issued for Basotho land previously. The decimal surcharge of the R1 was done on the 10 shilling stamp of the then current definitive issue, and it was done with 2 types of font, the first being by far the rarer, and as can be seen it is shorter and stubbier than the second one. The £1 and the £5 were both meant just for revenue, and on the right there the £5 was decimalised to R10, which was the correct exchange rate. Nice block of 5. The R1 and the 20 cents, both from the 3rd Elizabethan definitive issue, they were postage and revenue, and here we see them used by the Master of the High Court as revenue stamps. The £2 stamp issued for postage and revenue, and here used by the Master of the High Court as revenue stamps. The 7.5 cents from the 3rd Bechuanaland Elizabethan definitive issue with the overprint Republic of Botswana. This is after independence, with the missing cyan blue overlay on the right hand stamp. While in South Africa in 2013, I was going through a dealer's box with him, and we found a half sheet of this stamp. This is a marginal copy from that sheet. Imperfect proof from the De La Rue archives. Unaccepted colour. The colour that was finally accepted was blue. Page 2 from the De La Rue archives, with 2 proofs for the 5 cents and the 30 cents stamps for the definitive issue. The colours were not accepted, they were reversed, with the 5 cents being brown and the 30 cents being blue. It should also be noted that the typed postage and revenue stamps is incorrect, as because it was 3 countries, to ensure that the correct revenue went to the correct coffers, each of the 3 countries had to have separate revenue issues. The hand-painted essay on thick card from the De La Rue archives, it was designed by H. Grimm, and although it's not dated, there was a archival photograph of the plate proof, and that was dated the 1st of the 4th, 1953. The stamps that were designed from it only had 2 elephants, and they were on the 15 cents. That's both types, the 1.30 and the 5 shilling values. A page from the De La Rue archives marked page number 11 with the imperforate proof of the 5 shilling stamp in the colours that it was to be issued. Varieties on the 20 cent. The paper varied from off-white to dirty white. Then there is a missing perforation, and finally an imperforate pair. The 20 cents imperforate. There are a few known copies, and there are a few used copies known. The used copies were found on registered letters to London from Nairobi and were dated the 9th of the 2nd, 1957. All the addressees' names and addresses have been cut from the envelopes, so it is assumed that these stamps came from the Nairobi post office, were seen and purchased by an employee who probably paid for them officially, but brought them out and put them onto the philatelic market. Used pair of the imperforate stamps. It is suspected that a postal clerk purchased the sheet under the counter and used them on mail to get used copies back to his family in the United Kingdom, and to save being caught, the name of the addressee was cut out. 2 major errors for the Uganda revenue. The first, seen in a block of 4, double overprint, the lower of the 2 being weak, and it is assumed that the operator, on seeing the weak print, put the sheets through again. They would have to have been kept because of the strict security at De La Rue, and it was obviously missed when the checkers checked the sheets. This stamp is known used on cover, but I personally have never seen one. The second stamp, which I believe is unrecorded, is the missing revenue just leaving the Uganda. Again, a formula registered letter from, this is also size H, it is from Nairobi to Berlin. It is from a vending company in Nairobi to a vending machine manufacturer in Berlin. It contained coins, presumably for the company making the vending machine to adjust the mechanism to take local East African coins. The postage rate was 28 shillings and 90 cents. Now this is a huge amount. It is an express cover, so the postal charges were to pay for the express fee at 10 cents, the registration fee at 60 cents, and 27 shillings and 30 cents to pay the airmail rate at 21 times the 130 per half ounce or part thereof rate. This is the only time I've ever been able to get a cover with the pound value on it, and there's a premium in that the cachet on the back shows that the cover was carried by the pneumatic post under Berlin. This is the reverse of the previous cover, showing the 2 shillings, 5 shillings and the pound stamps correctly used, and the cachet from the pneumatic post, the Ruhrpost pneumatic post, which carried the cover underneath Berlin. 20-cent postal stationery envelope intended for internal surface rate. I show a mint example and then an uprated example to London, the airmail rate being 130 per half ounce. I also show over on the right hand side where the ink has been omitted, leaving an albino embossed impression in the envelope. If you remember the leaflet from the first page, and I mentioned the wildebeest to you, you'll see the wildebeest is there depicted on the top stamp, the 20-cent stamp. When I went into the post office, I saw these stamps. As I remember it, they'd cut them out and mounted them onto a page, because I could never understand it, what the black images were. On the right there is a De La Rue colour trial proof for the 250 frame, and it is in ochre there, but it was issued in an olive green, which I'll show you the printed stamp in a moment. A couple of small flaws. The blob on the crane's head, that the crane was the emblem of Uganda, the giraffe was the emblem of Tanganyika, and the lion represented Kenya. If we look at the middle block there, you'll see arrowed the Y flaw. This was later rectified with a retouch, and although my little scan on the side there is a little bit blurred from overdeveloping it, you can still see that that is the Y flaw retouch. This is an imperforate piece from the De La Rue Day book, a colour trial in the accepted colour. Imperforate proof on the left hand side there, the 15 cent, and on the right the imperforate 10 shilling, which was issued in error. Kenya, Uganda, Tanganyika. The postal administration for the three countries was amalgamated under the East African Post and Telecommunications Union, which meant that stamps had to be overprinted revenue so that the monies collected could be allocated to the correct country. Tanganyika took a different course. They issued separate revenue stamps. The other interesting point with these stamps is that they were printed in error. Even previously with King George the Fifth and Sixth, they were issued as pound stamps, but in East African currency there is no pound. The currency was only shillings, so the stamp should have been 20 shillings. The mistake was only rectified with the second definitive issue for Queen Elizabeth, when it was corrected to 20 shillings. Both Kenya and Tanganyika had Cody stamps, which was a poll tax on the local people. They bought the stamps and placed them on a card and carried it to be shown to the local authorities as and when required. It would appear that Uganda did not issue Cody stamps of or with the Queen's head on them. They continued to use Cody stamps of King George VI. I may add that these stamps are the rarest of the rare. These stamps are forgeries, that is, up until the brightly coloured ones, including the large 1 shilling. They show the development from 1934 through to the Elizabethan stamps of the Cody stamps. On the right is a poor quality, but the only one I've ever seen of the mandated territory of Tanganyika Cody stamp, and I put it there as a comparison against the forged copies. Double overprint on the Tanganyika official 1 shilling. The original stamp is on the left. I say original, the normal stamp is on the left, and on the right we can see that the impression on the double is almost coincident. You can recognize it by the heavier strike and the fact that the center hole has been narrowed to look not unlike a Maasai or Kikuyu or a Zulu shield. Southern Rhodesia, the threepenny stamp from the commemorative set. There were 4 stamps issued to commemorate the royal visit of the King and the Queen and the 2 princesses to Southern Rhodesia in 1947. The stamp on the left is from the Waterloo archives and is security punched, and the stamps on the right are a printer's imprint with the post office guide for separating the sheets. When they were distributed in southern Rhodesia, often the smaller post offices didn't require the full sheets, so they were divided along these marked lines for accountancy reasons. The colours on the left, we have a dark blue, and it doesn't show that well here, but the copy on the right is a lot lighter when you hold the actual stamps. So there was a dark blue and a light blue issue. This is the halfpenny stamp from the second definitive issue of Southern Rhodesia, with the coil joins. The stamps were taken from a sheet, strips were torn off, and they were joined at the salvage, rolled up and used in vending machines. I also show on the bottom left a used copy with a blow up of that on the right hand side. The stamp in the middle shows the variety, the floor through the line of the bottom leg of the R in Rhodesia. This is the sixpenny stamp from the same definitive issue. The block shows the variety of the floor, known as a doctor's blade floor. The doctor's blade was a flexible steel blade which ran over the plate to remove the excess ink. And when that excess ink sometimes built up on the blade, it caused these flaws. I show an expanded view there on the right hand side, so that you can see that it goes all the way through the stamp and into the two stamps below. It is also of interest to note that the flame lily shown on this stamp was the national flower of Southern Rhodesia. This is the 10-shilling stamp from the same definitive issue, showing various printers' guide marks on the left-hand margin there. The 123 is the security sheet number, and we also have on stamp 2, stroke 2, second stamp on the second line, the extra feather floor. Here I show one of the rarest of the CONSULARs. This was a Rhodesian Railways CONSULAR which was put into use at Sharbani, which was the largest asbestos mine in southern Rhodesia. The post office burnt down on the, or about, or during the end of December 1954, and the post office, when it re-established, continued to use the Rhodesian Railways CONSULAR for 3 days only. This is the independence of Southern Rhodesia. I say independence, but it was a unilateral declaration of independence which was not accepted by the British government. During the preparation of the first day covers, it is alleged that a sheet turned up that had the missing vermilion, I say missing, there is just a touch left on the tail, and this flaw, this mistake, was only noticed afterwards. So if the story is true, there may be a few of these still on first day covers which have gone unrecognised. So as I've put there, happy hunting. This is the first stamp to have Rhodesia on it, the Churchill Centenary Commemorative, which was issued on the 16th of August 1965. A positional piece, top left-hand corner, with the security number there, 315. The 7 and 6pences are the counter clerk's accountancy workings, and if we look at stamp number 2, that's row 2, number 1, you'll see there is a flaw behind the hilt of the sword known as the scratch through sword flaw. The Unilateral Declaration of Independence, UDI, was announced on the 11th of November 1965, but the stamps celebrating it were only produced on the 8th of December in the same year. I'm not sure when the forgeries were made, but it is alleged that they were made in England to raise funds for the Rhodesia loyalists, or by the Rhodesian loyalists, and that the money created by the sale of these stamps was to be donated back to Rhodesia. The stamp over on the top left-hand corner, I think, is possibly an essay for the forgeries, but I must be honest, I'm not absolutely sure. After the independence issue, the same set with Southern removed from Southern Rhodesia was reprinted by Harrison and issued on the 9th of February 1966. And although the printings are far superior to the Leighton Marsden printings, they were made in a hurry, so there are quite a few varieties. And I show an extra line in the perforations, in the comb perforation, down on the top row, and then on the two small blocks to the right, you'll see that the branches, which you can see clearly on the left-hand stamp, are fading as if on a foggy day. They are just suggested through the mist. Interrupted printing. These two stamps appear to come from the same sheet, and the cause of the interrupted printing may be that the paper folded. The evidence for this is the crease through the stamp on the left-hand side. The 2.5 cent threepenny dual currency stamp from 1967 to 1970, printed by Marden, the Salisbury printer. Can be seen in the sky. There are two clouds which aren't normal. This is probably caused by cleaning material on the printing plates not being cleaned off properly. Printers imprint with imperfections. The two abnormalities, there is a spot in the A of Salisbury and a spot in the Queen's eye, giving the appearance of a bionic eye. It is probably caused by a chemical used for cleaning, and not having been cleaned off properly has caused a reaction with the printing ink. This is a 6-penny stamp of the Central African Airways commemorative issue of 1966. And I show the double blade floor, which appears on 2 stamps. The first on row 3, position 9, and then again this one on row 10, and again position 9. The image has been misaligned on both stamps, and it gives the appearance of having 2 propellers. As I said, they were only used or available for a little over a year, but there must have been a great demand because they were overprinted up to the value of £1. Now we come to the controversial issue of the postage dues at Mkushi Post Office, where Beck, the district officer, ordered the clerk to type up postage dues on George VI stamps, on the coronation stamp, and on these 2 stamps to fulfill a need which had been brought about by the increase in the local letter rate from a penny halfpenny to 2pence. These 2 stamps in mint condition must be considered facsimiles, because as far as is officially known, there are no mint stamps. The only recorded examples are on cover, of which I believe there are 20 odd in existence. This is not my cover, but I borrowed it off a friend so that I could show you how the stamp was used. This is the pair that are in my collection. The Lusaka printing was done in a hurry, but was not accepted. And here we start to see some of the varieties. The block of 4 is how the stamps should have been, and then we start to look over there was a missing 3pence, and then there was what is known as the flown eagle. You'll see that there is no colour in the eagle, it is left white, but if you look down behind Northern and Rhodesia, you'll see that the eagle has been printed but very low down. The same way as on the last single stamp there, you can see that the 3pence is printed in the wrong place. It is being dropped, while on the strip at the bottom, you've got a black line which decreases across the badge with each of the stamps, and there is also a slight smudging on the last 3 stamps of the Rhodesia. Again, some of the varieties, the block of 4 is the correct printing, and then the first 1 penny, you'll see the penny is missing. On the what would have been the 9 penny value, not only is the value missing, but the print on the eagle is missing completely. And on the row at the bottom, this is from the coils for vending machines, and you can see that they're coils because of the they've been guillotined, leaving the last 3 stamps with more perforations on the one side than on the other. Here we have a dropping of the printing on the badge, leaving the eagle with a halo effect under the wing. And then over on the 4pennies, you've got the missing value and the progressive dropping of the 4penny value on the bottom 2 stamps there. This is the parting in the Queen's hair. It is found on all of the small format stamps. This is usage of the error without value. This is the penny value, and is used on the window envelope from Andola. There was a second printing of the twopenny value in a smaller size. I show on the left the original printing and a printer's imprint on the right there of the smaller lowercase printing. You can see from the printer's imprint that the printers were Bradbury Wilkinson. This is a bill of exchange drawn in Blantyre. It has on the front 2 embossed revenue stamps of Great Britain, a 10 shillings and a 2 shilling, both dated the 13th of February 1954. That is to pay the stamp duty due to the British government. The stamp duty due to the Nyasaland government is paid by 9 1-shilling stamps and 8 6penny stamps, making a total of 13 shillings, if I'm correct, to pay the Nyasaland government stamp duty. As far as I am aware, the block on the top right hand corner of the 6penny stamps is the largest known multiple of this value. This is a bill of exchange for £1,203.14 drawn on the Standard Bank in Blantyre. There are 2 lots of stamp duty due and have been paid for, with on the front side 2 embossed British embossed stamps. That's a 10 shillings and a 2 shillings, both dated the 13th of February 1954. On the back we have 13 shillings paid for the stamp duty to the Blantyre government, that being made up of 9 1-shilling stamps and 8 6penny stamps. The 6penny stamps being the rarest of the 2 stamps, and besides being extremely rare, I believe that this block of 5 in the top right hand corner is the largest known multiple of that value. Pair of the 5-shilling overprinted revenue stamps of Nyasaland used on the reverse of a bill of exchange drawn up in Blantyre on the 2nd of September 1954. You'll see on the bill of exchange that there are two embossed British stamps, a 5 shilling and a 4 shilling, that is to pay the stamp duty due to the British government. High Values, printed by Bradbury Wilkinson. If you look into Barefoot, they list a 4 shilling stamp in brown, which I've spoken to several people, and the general consensus is that that stamp, like some of the others that they list, just doesn't exist. This is a Nyasaland employment stamp. When the revenue had to be channeled to a specific account, stamps were often named to enable that money to go to the correct account. Incidentally, although it says Nyasaland, the revenue was for Nyasaland, but the usage was in the other two, at least the other two countries, Northern Rhodesia and Southern Rhodesia, where the employee paid and the money was collected and paid in this manner, paid back to the Nyasaland government as a tax on that specific person. I believe it may have been used on the South African mines as well, but I need to see the evidence. This is an example of the stamps being used in Mtoko in Southern Rhodesia. The low values from the Rhodesia and Nyasaland first Queen Elizabeth definitive issue in imperforate with security punch holes, and these from the Waterloo archives. In the mid-1980s, most of this material turned up in the Carlton Centre in Johannesburg. Still showing the first definitive series of Rhodesia Nyasaland. The middle range was slightly bigger than the low formats, and then the top three, the 5 shillings, the 10 shillings, and eventually the pound, were again larger stamps still. Here I show some of the vignettes and plate proofs from the Waterloo archives, and the 2 imprint blocks for the 5 shilling and the 10 shilling with the perforation guides. Rhodesia and Nyasaland. 5 shilling from the first Elizabethan definitive issue for those countries. I show the printer's imprint with the perforation guide and the guide which was requested by the post office to separate sheets for distribution where the receiving post office was too small to receive a whole sheet of stamps. They were separated along these lines for that distribution. Also show 2 imperforate interpano blocks of the imperforate proof panes with Waterloo security punch holes. If you look at the first one, the head plate, you'll see that the confetti has been left in on stamp number 3, which is the first time I've ever seen this. This is the 10-shilling printers in print essay from the Waterloo archives. The thing to look at is the perforation gauge at the bottom, but more important, hidden between the perforations is the post office separation guide. This was used by the post office in distribution when the smaller post offices didn't need a full sheet. It could be split and portions sent to various offices. These guides were to assist in that separation. File copy of the top value, the £1 stamp, from the Waterloo archives. This is a very large cover which is being cut and folded so that it could be placed on a page. I have taken scans of the relevant portions. The stamps are on the front of the cover. That's the postage stamps. The Central African Airways stamps are on the reverse. This cover has been transported by CAA. By law, it had to have postage stamps on it. This was paid for in 8p halfpenny, which, as you can see here, on the front of the cover. The service was that the customer could take the cover to an airport. It would then be flown by CAA on the Airways letter service. It could then be picked up at the destination by the addressee. The CAA stamps were cancelled by hand at the airport of origin. The postage stamps weren't cancelled at that point because if required at destination, if nobody picked it up, it could still be posted. Here we see that the stamps were cancelled with the cachet of Central African Airways, and in Salisbury, so the cover would have been picked up by the addressee. This is the threepenny stamp from the second definitive issue of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. I show a corner example with the £3, which is the accountancy mark, and the 185 is the sheet security number. On the left we have the vignette from the Bradbury Wilkinson archives, and it shows the grave of Civil Rhodes, who was buried in the Matapos Hills. The print is in print for the 1 and threepenny value, and the vignette, which depicts Lake Nyasa. That the proof is from the Bradbury Wilkinson archives. Positional piece of the 5 shilling value, and on the left the proof of the vignette from the Bradbury Wilkinson archives. The statue is that of Cecil Rhodes. There's a marginal copy of the £1 with the vignette from the Bradbury Wilkinson archives. The interesting point here is that it shows the badge, the eagle for Northern Rhodesia, which was eventually to become Zambia, the sable antelope of Southern Rhodesia, which was eventually to become Rhodesia and then Zimbabwe, and the leopard of Nyasaland, which was eventually to become Malawi. This is a few stamps from the issue for the opening of the Kariba Dam in 1960. The Queen Mother opened it. These are a few of the minor flaws. There's the mirrored moon in the on the one in Thropney, the phantom seagull over the OD of Rhodesia, and a white blob in the P of postage. This is the top value of 3 stamps which were issued to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the first London to Rhodesia airmail service. That must have been 1932. I show this block of 4 because it contains the floor, the extra landing light, which can be seen to the edge of the wing of the comet. This stamp is of particular interest to me because I was in the Royal Air Force, and when I was stationed in Nairobi, Kenya, I was in charge of the guard at one period at Embakazi Airport. We were guarding the hawker hunters which used that airport because RAF Eastleigh only had a Muruma dirt runway, and it wasn't long enough for the hawker hunters to land and take off. But when these planes came in at night, we used to climb up the ladders and walk through as if we were inspecting them. Nobody ever said a word to us, but at least we saw the inside of all the main aircraft at that time. I remember particularly the Comets and the Super Constellations. Yeah, memories. The royal visit to Ethiopia in February 1965. 3 values were issued in a commemorative issue of 5 cents, 35 cents and 60 cents. And although the stamps themselves are not particularly rare, the printer's imprint is, and genuine uses is extremely rare. Here I show the printer's imprint for the 60 cents, the 5 cents used to make up the postage for an air letter to England, and the 35-cent stamp used on a local registered cover. (1957) was the centenary of the British Post Office in Tangier. A complete set of the British definitives were overprinted to commemorate the occasion, and they were valid not only in Tangier but in the United Kingdom. To find a used copy, whether it be in Tangier or the United Kingdom, is not easy. I think this one has been cancelled in the United Kingdom. Somaliland was originally a British protectorate founded in 1884, gaining independence on the 1st of July 1960. It then joined with what had been the Italian Somaliland to become the Somali Republic. During 1992, after a civil war, local authorities led by the SNM, that is the Somali National Movement, they were in the northwest and the old British-speaking area of the Somali Republic, unilaterally declared independence from Somalia on the 18th of May 1991. It is alleged that full independence was granted in 1995 and a postal system was introduced in 1998. Stamps were ordered. Due to a delay caused by the lack of the right type of paper by the printer, a provisional issue was arranged for a 500 shilling surcharge to be printed locally on a 1p GB machine head stamp. 4,300 stamps were issued. It would appear that this was during 1998. The first stamps to be issued had no star, and then when that was found, they introduced the star, so the rest were printed with the star. The stamps were not well received, and after a few days they were withdrawn and remainders were destroyed. Genuine usage is recorded, plus minus 30 covers were purchased from a government department. It is supposed that other used covers exist. This is a cover from the Zaire River expedition. It's come back through the British Forces Post Office number 444, which was at Mbondu in Zaire. The expedition was made up of Americans and British troops with Gurkhas and members of the Zaire military. There were about 50 scientists and 9 women who were all chosen for specific roles, whether it be language, wildlife, ornithology, the just general weather information, the fauna, flora, everything that they could get into that expedition they did. There are a lot of philatelic covers, but this appears to be a genuine from a Dr. Crook back to the United Kingdom, as I say, using the Forces Post Office, so it was only 4.5p, which was the Forces concession rate.